had to choose one, it's really hard for me to do that because each one was very different in and of itself. And I look back at them and I'm honestly quite grateful I've been through it all because it's just changed who I am and it's made me for who I am. And you learn a lot when you're down and out.
Welcome to the Injured Athletes Club podcast, the show that helps athletes cope with sports injuries and to bounce back stronger. I'm mental skills coach, Carrie Jackson. We're sorry you're here, but we're glad you're with us.
And I'm journalist Cindy Kuzma. This week, our guest is triathlete, gravel racer, and coach Angela Naeth. But before we get into the interview, we wanted to share one key resource with you.
One of the things you'll see in this episode is our guest's passion for a growth mindset and always being open to learning more. So the resource we want to share with you is our book, A Rebound, Train Your Mind to Bounce Back Stronger from Sports Injuries. It's a fantastic book full of things that you can learn about your emotional recovery that's going alongside with your physical recovery. So we've got stories in there from more than 40 athletes and over 45 mental skills and drills that you can use to help support you through your recovery. There's all kinds of stuff to learn in there. And it's a really wonderful resource for anybody that is wanting to support their resilience and confidence through their injury. So you can head over to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, wherever you like to buy your books. You can also go over to our website, injuredathletesclub.com, and find some links there to purchase the book where you can get a paperback, an Audible version, or a Kindle version, whichever you prefer to help support your recovery.
Great. Thanks for that, Carrie. And also a great big thank you to our exclusive sponsor for this season, Lever Movement. They're the creators of the Lever System, a portable lightweight device that attaches to a treadmill to reduce your body weight. You'll hear more about them later in this episode, but just a little spoiler alert for now, you can use code INJURED20 for 20% off any device at levermovement.com. And with that, let's get on to this week's show. Our guest this week is Angela Naeth. She's been a professional triathlete since 2008 and also competes as a gravel racer. She's the founder of I Race Like a Girl and Girls Get Gritty, which are sporting communities for women in triathlon and gravel cycling, respectively. So she's really big on community. She's also the co-host of her own podcast, and she hosts that with Injured Athletes Club member Amy Woods. We appreciate her a lot. That podcast is called the Middle Miles Podcast. It used to be called I Race Like a Girl, in case you listened to that one before. Same thing, new name. She's a coach at Angela Naeth Coaching, which is something she's been doing since 2010, and she has a master's degree in physical therapy and health sciences. Carrie, you couldn't join me for this interview, unfortunately, but I know you are really going to appreciate hearing what Angela has to share. And one of the things that stuck out to me, and I remember telling you this immediately after I talked to Angela, that something that really stuck out to me about our conversation and something I haven't heard in one of our interviews before is, you know, Angela has been through a lot. She's had Lyme disease. She's had many injuries, stress fractures. She is just getting over a posterior tibial tendon tear. And she said that one of the things that's been most helpful in helping her navigate those things has actually been learning from a bad breakup and like going to therapy after a relationship ended. And she learned so much about herself and what she wanted to work on in her attitude during that process that then really helped her navigate some difficult periods in sport. So I thought that was super interesting because
love that.
Yeah. You know, we're always talking about the way that working on mental skills in sport can help you in other areas of your life, but it turns out the reverse is also true.
That is absolutely right. I love that when athletes recognize that they can build a bridge from one part of their life to another and realize like, oh, I have some skills here. How do they work in sport or vice versa? Like that is awesome.
Yeah. And you can tell, as you kind of alluded to earlier, Angela definitely has a growth mindset. And when she is sidelined with an injury, she really dives into learning something new, expanding her skill set, working on something else that maybe is something that's related to helping her injury. But also, you know, she talks about really getting into like coding and learning a lot more that could help her coaching business. And so it's very cool because, you know, she's really done more of a deep dive into coaching these past few years as she's been through some setbacks. And that was kind of cool to talk to her about too. And it's clear that she's really passionate about it. And another thing that's nice about that, I think, is that, you know, she is still racing at a high level, but she is a master's athlete now. And so we talked a little bit about what the next phase of her career looks like. And she still wants to race her best, but she also knows that she has something else that she's already doing. In fact, many things that she's already doing that she loves and that she feels like she can accomplish more in. And so I know that when that time to fully transition comes for her, that's going to go maybe better than it might be for someone who didn't have that in their lives. So yeah, I think you are really going to appreciate hearing this. And I think our listeners will too. So here is my interview with Angela. Angela, welcome. And thank you so much for joining us on the Injured Athletes Club.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk.
So we always say around here, we're sorry you're here, but we're glad you're with us. And we say that because we know injury and illness can be a roller coaster with lots of ups and downs along the way. So I know you're coming out of a period of being injured now, but I say all that to say, when we ask this, we really want to know the answer. Angela, how are you doing today?
I am doing amazing. Very, very good, actually. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I love that. That is actually not a common answer that we get on the show, like short and sweet.
Oh,
like,
no?
That's amazing. So that's good. Well, you have had such a long career as a pro athlete, which we're kind of in awe of over here. And I know in that time you've overcome a lot of obstacles, Lyme disease, bone injuries, tendon injuries. And so we can talk through some of those, but when you think about those experiences, like, is there one that stands out for you as the most difficult, like from a mental and emotional, psychological perspective? And if so, I'm curious why.
Yeah, I mean, each one of them gave me a very different experience depending on how long they were, and some were unknowns. And I think the hardest part with any injury is there's no, okay, I'm going to be better timeline or specific day. And I look back at some of them, and some of them are quite long. For example, Lyme disease was a very ongoing up and down thing, which it is in and of itself was very tough. At the same time, COVID hit. So I think that was one of the biggest difficulties, was just navigating that whole process and feeling like I'll never get back to myself. But then there's more catastrophic ones in terms of breaking my hip, going through surgery. I broke my foot and had to go through multiple surgeries, and different doctors saying different things about it. So if I had to choose one, it's really hard for me to do that because each one was very different in and of itself. And I look back at them and I'm honestly quite grateful I've been through it all, because it's just changed who I am and it's made me for who I am. And you learn a lot when you're down and out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we found that for sure, when we were writing our book years ago now, and then through the time doing this podcast, it's like a super common thing that we hear is, I wouldn't have wished this on anyone. I wouldn't want to go through it again necessarily, but like ultimately I'm glad I had that experience. So it's interesting to hear you say that about all of those experiences. Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk about most recently. I know you've been dealing with a tendon injury, which if I'm not mistaken, that was your first tendon injury in a while.
Yeah. Well, I've had broken bones, numerous broken bones. I've had ligament injuries. I've had sicknesses, but a tendon I've never actually torn. I've had tendon strains, but when you tear a tendon, it's a little bit different. Yeah. So that took a while. So I did an Ironman, and 5 days later, I just couldn't walk, and I was fine in the race. But, what happened eventually was the posterior tib tendon in your inner ankle tore. And so that went through a cascade of trying to figure out, well, what's next? How do I fix this? And what do I do? So long story short, I went to a number of doctors, got very different opinions, went to one doctor who suggested surgeries and right away. But after going through a number of them and talking with my own coach, just doing research, we decided to wait and do some PRP and all different types of injections in that sense. But I'm very happy to report that it's healed, and I've been slowly building up the running and healthy now. So very happy how it went. It was very long. I think the tendon tore in July, and I wasn't starting to run until probably the end of December.
Okay. Yeah, that is a long time. And I know, and I do want to talk more about your hip injury too, your stress fracture there, and like kind of compare and contrast, because those are pretty different experiences. But yeah, it isn't like a quicker fix with tendons, right? So yeah, tell me about how you made that decision that time with surgery, when with your previous injury, that was like a whole different calculation and a different decision.
Yeah. So when I went to, when it started getting worse, I went to my good friend who's a podiatrist, and he got me an MRI. The MRI showed a torn tendon, but yet when you are in the inflammation process, when you get an MRI, it's very, very muddy. Like a lot of things can be inflamed. So it's hard to really see what's going on. I live outside of Boston, so I researched a few Boston doctors and ended up with an orthopedic surgeon. Went to him, and right away he's like, "Well, I don't know what you have, but it looks like we're going to have to realign your tendon with another tendon, and I won't know until I get in there. But you're not going to be able to ever run again unless we do this." And so I left that clinic thinking, "Well, I'm going to have surgery." So I actually was pretty solid in going to the fact that I need to get this done now. But I consult with a number of different doctors, and one that I've been consulting with who works with a lot of sport, a lot of athletes as their own doctor. He consults me with coaching and stuff as well. Oh, okay. He said I would not do that, even without even looking at me. He's like, give it time first. And so I conferred with him and also my good friend who's a podiatrist and his people, and just made the idea that, let's give it some time, because this surgery that they were thinking may work is a very severe surgery. Like it's extracting a tendon and making one tendon out of another tendon. And it's like a full year rehab. Wow. And then the foot mechanics will never be the same. So it was either wait a bit and see, or go with this route. So I decided to wait. And it wasn't getting better. I got an MRI and it wasn't getting better. But then I ended up deciding to go with stem cells and did some stem cell injections and paid out of pocket and got it. It was very expensive. I did it twice. But it worked. So I'm very happy that it did. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing all that too. I think it's helpful for like our listeners to know that even when you are at a high level and you have kind of medical knowledge yourself, it's like not easy to make those choices.
I always tell people get more than one opinion, because when you go to a doctor, even though they have a medical degree, it doesn't showcase their experience or true knowledge. Like even any coach or anyone that's out there, like just because they say they're this or that or have done some type of education, it's really the value of getting more than one opinion that really, really helps. And then just from my previous experiences. So the two things that happen when someone gets injured to me is they react right away within like an emotional response. And so with that response, you tend to react. And I think over the years, I've learned that there is a pause between that action that you can do. And if you have the understanding that a lot of what's happening is emotional first, then you can sit back and say, okay, this is just, an experience I'm feeling. I need to figure out and learn what are the options here without going to one right away. And you mentioned my hip, and with my hip, I had a stress fracture in my neck, which is pretty severe. I had to be fully non-weight bearing. But the first doctor, it was enough that it would heal, is what they said. But 6 weeks later, I just felt like I needed to get an MRI, and so I paid out of pocket and requested one for that. I mean, very expensive, but I just had this feeling. And it was getting worse. And so that's when I decided to go to a new doctor and get more opinions. And I know from my experience with bones myself, they do take quite a bit to heal. And the hip is just not one I would want to play with. And so I did research on the doctor. I did research on post-op, like what happens when people do get this surgery. Can they go back to running? Can they do what they want? And so I opted to do the surgery because I felt deep inside. And I think there's always this feeling you know what is the right path. And sometimes, yes, talking to a bunch of people will help, but I truly feel that you really do know yourself more than anyone else. And I felt that that was the path I needed to take in order to heal.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So it's a trust process.
Yeah. Well, and it is difficult to kind of hone that intuition over time, I think, and to really listen to that. But I think your first point about like the difference between like kind of your initial reaction and like the actual response you should have, or like you would have after you take some time to calm down and think about it is really helpful. And I know that's like a lot of the work that Carrie does is help people create that space, for like, that process to unfold, because it does take a little bit of time. But let's talk a little bit more about that hip injury, because I know that was a big one. Even before you got to the point where you just mentioned making the choice to have surgery, like tell us a little bit about like kind of how that came up for you, like what.
I was building out in the winter running and, started feeling a little bit in my hip, but nothing's too serious. I thought it was a hip flexor strain. So started doing all the prehab and rehab for that. I've never had anything issues with my hip wise. So I never thought anything worse than that. I've had bone fractures and stuff. So I know what bone feels like, but it never felt that deep. It wasn't until I went for a run. I actually traveled overseas. We were doing 2 weeks overseas. And the day before we left, I went for a run and I felt something just different. Like you can, I think for with bone, or anything, there's a point or a process where a needle doesn't become a needle, it becomes something.
Right.
And that something is a little bit too late, but I did feel that. And then we went overseas. And that's when the pain got more and more intense. And it was when I couldn't basically walk. Obviously I knew something was up, but it was that. That's a hard one to come by, because a lot of females, I think, have a lot, like you can get hip stress fractures and it's really hard to differentiate that from any type of tendon or ligament, or like even a muscle strain, because there's so much involved in the hip. So one thing I learned really well, and I mean, I know this from school, it's just, when you're in the thick of it, and I've been in the athlete for so long that I've just never had hip issues. But when it's unilateral and it's kind of always constantly aggravating, that's something to look at, it just didn't get to a point where it was that painful for me until it was. And so I don't know if there's anything I could have done differently, knowing myself, because I've had a lot of niggles before that kind of just subsided with doing prehab and rehab and a lot of modalities that I have here, and just for my education. But at the same time, it's like, you always do the best you can at the point of your life. And that's the best I knew at that time was, it wasn't painful enough to stop me. And so why would I stop, so you have to accept the consequences when things go down the path you don't go down.
Right. And that was one thing that I wanted to ask about too, because you talked about this really thoughtfully on your podcast, and we'll link to that in the show notes. But you talked about that acceptance, especially because, this was something that could have been like, not just like season ending, but like career ending. Right. Yeah. So how did you get to that point of acceptance, do you think?
I pretty much accepted it right away. And I know it's hard to say how. Yeah. But I've just been through so much, and I've come to a few things. So one, I went through Lyme disease. And that was just honestly one of the hardest things in my life in terms of knowing what's going to come out on the other end. I literally was losing my entire life in that process. And, not being able to run is not something that I am attached to. I love to run. I love to race. I love to do triathlon. But I've done it for many, many years in my life, and I know not to attach myself to outcome or what that is. Now, that's not to say if I was in a wheelchair that I would be going through some very depressive phases and having to deal with a lot. But I knew I could ride my bike. I knew I could swim. I knew there were other avenues if I could not run. And I think that's the important key, is not to connect so deeply to something that you do, because the body is so fragile in and of itself. It's a very strong and resilient thing, but it's fragile and anything could happen at any point. And so I just accepted it. I'm like, okay, well, like I have to accept this. Like me dwelling on the fact that I have a woe is me is not my mentality either. I'm always searching for, okay, now what, like move forward versus staying in that position, because it's not helping me. Like it just is. Not attaching to it is one of the biggest things I've learned over the years. Like my first injury was when I was 14. I got a stress fracture, and it just, I don't know if I learned anything back then about it.
Who learns anything at 14, really? No.
Yeah. To just be more tough. But, you go through your years, you become a lot wiser, and you realize that you are not the runner. You are not like anything but what you decide it to be. And if you're attaching to something that can literally be taken away from you in an instant, then you need to dive deep into that. Why are you attaching to something that can be taken away? Like, that's not who you are internally. And so I've never attached myself, or I've grown to not attach myself, but you learn to not attach to things that are important to you and I value very much, but I'm not attached to it. And I think it's that process of over the years, like navigating that thought process, and it just puts you into acceptance quite quickly. It's not to say I was mad at myself or angry or sad and going through the ups and downs, but like, just like anything, you go through denial, anger, depression, bargaining. And I can get to acceptance pretty quickly, but that doesn't mean I don't have any of those emotions or they don't come back up. But I redirect myself quite quickly. And during those periods of times, the tendon and the hip, I have grown so many different avenues in my life. And that's the thing. I dove into stuff that I knew I could do. And it wasn't necessarily exercise at all.
Yeah. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Like, how did you fill the time and find purpose during those times when you weren't training or competing?
Yeah. So when I did the hip, I reached out to my coach, who's a good friend of mine. We work on little different things, and I have my own coaching company. And I said, I need to do something, because because you can't really do much with a broken hip. Like I was out of the water. I had to rest. And I just dove deep into education. I consulted with 2 different doctors, and over the last year and a half, we created a whole new philosophy of coaching and data, and created a whole software. Like I've learned so much in the last 2 years, more than I did in school, like in college. And it's because I dove deep, and I like, there were times my partner couldn't get me away from my computer because I would literally work 9 to 9, because I was so passionate about learning stuff. And it had nothing to do with my hip, but other things I was passionate about and learning. And like, I started coding, I started doing so many different things, and just learning I wanted to dive deep on more coaching, because that was really passionate for me. And I worked with other consultant coaches, and we had conversations over and over again, and we wrote things down. And like, now that whole avenue of my life, it has grown so much in terms of knowledge and understanding that it's just giving me a whole new aspect of what I'm doing in life now. Before, I always coached, but not to the degree of really understanding more than just what I knew at that time. I'm a continually learning process, and it's not regurgitating, but creating. And that's the biggest thing I think that can't come out of these 2 things, is learning to be creative and acknowledging that in your life, no matter what it is, whether it's work, play, going out and training and racing. You have to get creative in order to latch on to something. If you're going to latch on to anything, latch on to creativity, because that's such a driving force in terms of anything you do. Get creative. For me, it was being creative in what I knew and how I could get more education and knowledge in that. And that just turned one stone to the next, to the next, to the next. And it just opened up so many worlds for me.
I love that. And we talk a lot about like curiosity too. And I feel like that's like along a similar vein, because it's like when you are curious about like, why is this happening, or how can I change this, or you're creative in a whole different avenue, it just helps that switch flip. Like you said, like you're still going to have sometimes the negative emotions, but it just gives you a positive place to channel all of that, and like just puts you in a different mindset.
Yeah, I've like, if you were to ask me one of my values, it's to be curious, like curiosity. And I think the value of seeing emotions as just as they are, like they're not bad emotions, they're emotions. And I'm going to have ups and downs in terms of if they're happy emotions or sad emotions, and it's just being able to pause, that the sun's still going to rise the next morning, and just letting go of control, because you don't have any of that control. Like when you get injured, you got injured. So instead of going back and beating yourself up about it, you're an injured person. Heal yourself, like take care of yourself now. Like if anything, don't beat yourself up more. Like that's not helping. Like if you had a little child in front of you who had a broken leg, what would you do for her? That's what you need to do for yourself. Like you would support her, like get her to get creative with her toys, or, find avenues, get her out of her pain. You wouldn't beat her down the bush and saying, well, why did you do that? Look what you did. You fell off the tree, and I think that it's that compassion and empathy toward yourself that is sometimes a learning curve for people. But we all have it. We're human. At least I hope you all have it.
I feel like sometimes it's hard to shift, like when you are in like full on training mode and athlete mode. I mean, it feels like a little, I know Carrie sometimes talks about like having an athletic template, that like, okay, sometimes where you're at is like, I'm pushing as hard as I can, or like, I mean, again, this is not always a great thing either, even when you're training and competing, right? But like, it's such sometimes a hard shift from being at your like peak performance level to being injured, and to shift from that more competitive, grittier mindset to a more compassionate mindset. So I feel like that's sometimes where people get hung up too. But I love that image of like the little girl. Yeah.
Well, and I think that's part of it is that you should have that while you're training, because training isn't something to beat yourself up over. You should leave every single thing you do that you can give more. Otherwise you're failing yourself, because you're putting yourself in a position of injury. And yes, you're always walking that fine line, and we all, the body tends to do what it does. And some things can be preventative. Some things sometimes just happen, like my tendon, I don't think I did anything wrong. And I spoke to my podiatrist who knows me from 5 years ago. Like sometimes these things just happen. You're getting older, sometimes things just have awareness factor. And so you accept that. And when you're in training mode, like I think that's the biggest thing of the changing point too, is understanding that compassion has to live in your training. Otherwise you will get injured, or you will push yourself to a point where that's all you value. And that's the mind shift that needs to be first taken care of, versus saying that this is the gritty part and this is the compassion part, because I definitely have compassion with myself every day when I can't do something, or I'm tired, or, trusting the process basically.
No, that's very wise. Thanks. That is not like two separate things. It's like always something that you should be nurturing. Can you run more mileage without getting hurt? Return to running sooner after an injury.
Keep your fitness even when you're facing a setback? Or get to the start line healthy and faster? If you ask our friends at Lever Movement, you just might find the answer to all of these questions is a resounding yes. We are thrilled to welcome Lever Movement back as our sponsor for season 9 of the Injured Athletes Club podcast. And if all that sounds good, they have an offer that makes it easier than ever for you to try the Lever system for yourself. In case you haven't heard about it yet, the Lever system is a portable, lightweight device that attaches to a treadmill to reduce your body weight. This is very good news for all of us athletes because it means less impact on the joints, so we can come back from injury safely or even prevent getting hurt in the first place. And the best part is that it's portable. That means you can use it at home or even take it to the gym and set it up in less than 2 minutes.
Elite athletes like marathoner Sarah Hall and Jess Lehrmanth, an Olympic gold medalist in triathlon, have used Lever in their training and rehab routines. And we know, so have many of you in the Injured Athletes Club. If you'd like to check out the Lever system for yourself, use the discount code INJURED20 to get 20% off any device. And stay tuned here on the podcast and in the Facebook group for the Injured Athletes Club this season. We'll have more exciting updates from our partnership. We have some fun plans in the works with Lever we know you're going to want to check out. I'm curious too, because I know that you did after, like you said, with the tendon, it probably wasn't something you did, but I know when you got the stress fracture, you did go back and look at some of the factors that might have contributed to that. And I think that obviously that's very wise because, if there are things you can shift to prevent something like that from happening again or to facilitate your healing, you want to do that, but you want to do it kind of without that self-flagellation or blame, right? So how do you kind of strike that balance if you're looking for answers or things to change without getting into that place of blame or shame?
I mean, I take myself out of the picture. So I have a patient, client, athlete, whoever. It's not me. She broke her hip. What are things that cause that positioning? Okay, too much, too low at the same time. Not enough fueling. Low bone density. Is she menstruating? What's the other stressors in her life? Does she have imbalances in her running? Putting it all on paper that where this person is not, I'm not putting any emotion on. I'm just putting factual thought process into why could this have happened? Mm-hmm. And so I did that. And you accept the fate of that. There was times where I didn't feel right on running, and could have that made a factor? 100%. I have low bone density. I have since I was 14. Could that be a huge factor? 100%. Was I in some high stress modes and running when it was cold and not really taking fuel, as I was saying prior? Yes. So you put all that in perspective, and was I maybe a little bit low in weight? Yes. I'm pretty stable in my weight, but that could always be a factor. But the thing is, you don't know what happened. You can't say that was the reason happening. It's always, there's so many variables in life. It could be, I was super high stressed or something. I mean, I don't quite recall being stressed back then, but it could have been anything, Mm-hmm. And so, okay, so let's look at the things. I know I wasn't feeling at times when I was going out for running. Okay. That's a huge flag for me. I need to fix that. And that was my fault. And could it have accumulated to that? 100%. But I'm not going to fault myself to the point where I lie in bed about it, because it is what it is. It happened. So now, even if that wasn't the cause or not, that's something I know I need to fix. Mm-hmm. And so then the low bone density, well, I have low bone density. I mean, I have it. And so things like this will happen to me more so than the other person. Yeah. Is that a crappy thing? Yeah, but it's who I am. It's the body that I have. And so I'm willing to accept that, Mm-hmm. So it's taking onus on what's happened to you, but also looking at it as somewhat putting things on paper without emotion, because they're just facts. Mm-hmm. So the tendon, so then you look at the tendon thing, there's probably culprits. So we increased my load in ton. I had different shoes. I wasn't wearing orthotics. Mm-hmm. I wanted to do a double Ironman, and I started running, even though I felt fine. I ran 5 days after my Ironman, which I probably should have gone a little bit lighter. Mm-hmm. Could have been that. But it could have been that something happened during the Ironman that weakened the tendon lightly, or it could have just been a fluke thing that happened. But either way, it doesn't matter. I am where I am now. What I need to do is heal it. So let's heal it. I think it's just, it's a mind shift, and it's not something, it's a learning curve to learn it, I guess, if you've first been that, but it's the biggest thing, if I have to say for anybody, is a victim mindset and not victim. And a lot of us think that the world is against us and everything that's happening is against who we are. And if you can flip that script and understand that no one is a victim, it is what it is. It happened because it happened. Mm-hmm. That whole thought process that someone's going against you completely changes your mindset completely. Like it is what it is. Like someone hit your car. Okay. Like it's just kind of a happenstance. Like I understand, like you can be a victim, I guess, in the sense of being assaulted or what have you, but it happened because it happened and it couldn't have happened any other way. It just happened. Mm-hmm. So what are you going to do about it now? Like that's where life is. It's not in the past. It's not in the future. It's right now. So the whole victim mentality, woe is me, it just doesn't work if you want to move forward, if you want to actually live in the present moment. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something I've just grew more and more about. And I think one of the biggest things that have helped me do that is actually going through relationships more so than being injured, because there is so much emotion going through the process of being connected with someone very, very personally, and going through that process, I think taught me so much more than any other injury.
That's really interesting. That is actually, again, not as a perspective that I've heard on the show before, but it makes so much sense, especially if you were in a place where you went through therapy, either with a partner or after a split, like that. It does, we always talk about how the skills that we, that Carrie teaches for mental training, for recovering from injury, translate into other areas of life. So it totally makes sense that things that you learn in other areas of life would translate back. But yeah, tell me more about, like, is there something specific that you think, I mean, I guess it's just like kind of what you were just saying, right? About that acceptance piece and like not feeling like,
it's like, well, it's just like, it's like when you go through a relationship and, to be brutally honest, I had my heart broken. I was truly in love with the person and things went this way. And I was heartbroken and I was a victim for a long time in my head. Why could this happen to me? Why doesn't he love me? What's wrong with me? On and on and on and on. And yes, I got therapy. I talked. I mean, I got therapy I've had so much therapy. I love it. It opens up your mind. Mm-hmm. But that process was really hard for me. It took me a while to actually accept me for who I was. Like I always thought I did something wrong inside. I was the bad person. Why I don't feel loved. And I think what it comes down to when someone turns into this mental shift of a victim, when something happens to them, there's something inside them that they're not reflecting on. So sometimes it's like, I'm not enough, or, nobody loves me, or like, I can't be loved. Like there's these internal, really strong things that people feel about themselves, or feel that that's who they are, that I can't be loved. So I have to people please in order to be loved. Mm-hmm. And if you can go through those and really just like have a real serious conversation with yourself or with a therapist and understand that, and going through the processes of all that, when I broke up, it was because I was fearful that no one loved me. I came from a loving family, but that was truly what I felt, is no one really truly loves me. And that's that's a hard thing to accept. But in reality, it's just something I said, I thought was real. Mm-hmm. And if you really sit with it, why am I not someone who can be loved? Of course I can be. And so then changing that and flipping that script and saying, like, truly valuing who you are inside, it's a process, and you have to see it and feel it and go through it to really reflect on it. So going through all that and then realizing like, I am loved. I am a good person. These are just stories I have said about myself because maybe when I was 4, I got left in a store. I don't know, something happened, where you start creating a story that becomes your lifestyle and what you believe in yourself. And you can flip that script anytime you want. You can change the story right now. Like if you, and then I always believe in second chances. So someone can do something wrong that you think is morally wrong or whatever, but that's not the person. It's just something that happened. And if it we all done stupid things and we've all done not so great things. And if you stick to those stories and say, that's who I am, where's the growth in life? Like you're not growing, you're not expanding who you are. You're just you're living a story that happened 5-10 years ago or more, even when you were 4.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's absurd if you think about it.
Yeah. No, it's so true. And yeah, don't ask me about the girl who dumped me in 5th grade on the playground. Like, it's like these things like lodge in your brain, and it really does like shape who you are for the rest of your life. Yeah. And even when you realize,
unless you can actually say, hey, that's just a story. Like, it's a story, you know?
Exactly. Well, and and when you get to those realizations, sometimes it's like, oh, this is what it's about. It's like such an interesting feeling. And then it totally does put you off in another direction.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So no, I love that kind of, and it's almost like, it sounds like a similar process to like what you were talking about with even just like thinking through the physiological factors that might have contributed to an injury. It's like almost, obviously it's about emotion, but it's like being a little bit more,
analytical in the sense, like, okay, here's what could have gone wrong. Like, let's fix those. And we all kind of go through these phases of getting lax on some stuff. Like, I know that I probably should have, for example, fuel when I was running and make sure that I get those recovery drinks. I know this stuff. I know it like through and through. I preach it every day to my athletes. But you become lax at things. It's the same thing as like, oh, I'll stay up another hour and sleep. Well, that's going to affect you the next day. Or like, I'm going to have 2 glasses of wine instead of 1. Like, we become more lax because we can get away with it. And then when those things compound, and it's not to get angry at yourself.
Yeah.
But accept, okay, this is something that I let slip. And this is, well, we know the consequences of that. So it's accepting the consequence and now moving forward to something that you don't want that consequence to be part of.
Yeah. And sometimes those other things, I mean, the fueling is a big one, right? Where it also has like a whole other emotional component to it too. So it's like easy to like slip back if you've had disordered eating or eating disorders in the past. And I know you all, again, have done some really great episodes about body image and all of that we'll link to. But yeah, it's like, it's not just like, oh, the habit slipping. Sometimes it's like slipping back into those other ways of thinking too, right?
And I guess that's the thing too, is you always, like, even now when things happen to me, it's not that you have to fight it, but you have these pathways you've developed for years that you're so easy to go to. And you have to take that pause. And if you can find people in your life that can help create that pause, like my sister is fantastic. I can text her and she's so bird's eye view of things that she puts things in perspective for me really, really quickly. And maybe she's my big sister, so that helps. But I have other people I can go to, and they're not emotionally attached at the time that I am. And so they're able to just take that out and give me that different perspective, or give me that pause that I need versus quick reaction. And I think a lot of us tend to quick react when we're in that high stress mode.
Yeah,
we do.
Yeah, totally. I am curious too, because you did have this tendon injury like relatively soon after the hip injury, which, like, as we've said, was a pretty major one. Like, what do you think that affected kind of your reaction or your emotional response to that too? Because we have a lot of athletes in our group who kind of start to struggle when they get a little bit of a back-to-back situation, or they feel like they're kind of in an injury cycle. And so I'm curious what that was like for you.
I mean, at first it was like, oh, I can't believe I have to deal with this again, kind of like that. But right away, when I did what happened with the hip, it was so quick for me in terms of pivoting to different things. And so when the tendon happened, I had so many different things I was excited about. And I'm like, oh, I get to sit on my computer and work on some stuff, or, and I moved houses and I had different things going on in my life. So it didn't really affect me in the aspect that it stopped my life. And I think that's one of the things I've learned as well, is you need other things in life to, like, your life's a pie, like this simple analogy we all go to. We all have pieces of this pie. And at times my athletic career can be 90% of that pie because that's what I want. But I still have those other slices. And when that injury happens, those other slices do become more important. And I put value into those, because they're part of my pie. I want that pie. But yeah, I mean, I was quick to accept it because there was nothing I could do. I let myself one day to kind of like hold it in. And then, but I've always been, okay, let's figure this out type of mentality. Like, I'm not someone to just sit and twiddle my thumbs and wait. I'm someone who will figure shit out in a figurative sense, in a real sense. Like, I will get to work. And so I went to work. Like, I figured out, okay, well, what can I do about this? How can I get this to heal? Like, you know?
Yeah. And it is like, I mean, especially when you're at the point where you're like considering different opinions and going to different appointments, like it is like work and time that you have to spend on that too. So yeah, that makes sense.
And when it happened, I had family come and, so it happened right after an Ironman. Then I went to another Ironman and was hoping I could potentially run. And so that whole process was a waiting game. And then my family came and my dog died. Like, I had so many things happen at once. So it's like, there's no chance for me to just kind of sit and be upset about it, because my family came from Canada and came to visit me at the same time. And, you know, it'll hit you at times and you have to feel those feelings, but it's also, you know, life moves on. Like, there's more to life than what you can do at a finish line, you know? And as much as, I mean, I'm one, I live this life, you know, right. I love it. And but it just doesn't, it can't define you. And it's just like what we learned about Lindsey Vonn, like her whole career and what she just went through. She tried. And I guess that's my biggest value too, is I try things. Sometimes they work out, sometimes they don't, but I try, and I will always try. Some people may not like what I do or like what I try to do, but I will try. I will be curious about things. Lindsey Vonn was curious. She was already injured and went to the Olympics. That's the same thing I did. Like, I will try. Let's just see what happens, you know? And yeah, it's really crappy. She crashed and everything else, but look at how she's dealing with it. It's the exact same way. Like, life moves on. I would be more upset with myself for not trying something and building and progressing to something than not. And so I'm happy about that. You know, I wouldn't want it any other way. Like, life's not a guarantee in any aspect. You just, you see what happens.
Yeah. No, Carrie had lots of thoughts about the whole Lindsey Vonn situation too. And everyone else's thoughts about it, which is like,
really?
You know, we were like, no, it's, you know, she is allowed to make the decisions that she wants to make. And yeah, and again, I don't even think her crash, like, I mean, did like her knee distract her? Possibly, but it's not like that caused it. And anyway, that isn't like the question, right? It's like, that was her decision to make. So, well, so you've alluded a couple times to your experience with Lyme disease too, which I know was also like a big thing that you went through. And I don't know how easy it is to kind of summarize that, but it does seem like you took a lot away from that has kind of informed your approach to all these other things. So as well. So
yeah. So Lyme disease was tough because what's funny is I had foot surgery and then just got back and was taking my dogs out for walks. And I just moved to the East Coast. I didn't know anything about ticks or anything, but they'd come back with ticks. But I thought, oh, they're just bugs. Like, I just never knew. I was so naive in terms of understanding or even the knowledge about it. And so I went back to racing and I just didn't feel right by myself. And I started researching and I just knew deeply inside. And I think that was the biggest thing is, you know, that you know yourself. And I went to doctors and they just said, take 2 weeks off. You know, this is just overreaching. And I'm like, no, this is something like inside. I feel like I'm crippled, you know? So it was the process of really trusting myself and knowing that this is not right. And not accepting what people are telling me. And really, it was myself and my boyfriend at the time, because he knew who I was. And I'm like, it's not it. Like, it's simply not. And we did a deep dive, and it was him and I that actually were like, you know what, this could be Lyme disease. And we're like, and so we started researching it. And then we started going down that path and finding very specific doctors who could test. And that's the way we found it. But it wasn't because I listened to a doctor or even 5 doctors. I went to the best of the best at Boston Children's, and they just said, look, you're just overdone. You need to take a year off. And it hit me hard. I'm like, I just don't believe that. Like, that's not what it is. And I think it was that turning point of really valuing what I thought and felt inside and knowing that and following that and not following someone else's thought process, that really changed things for me. And so even the process of going through Lyme disease was tough, because when you go through Lyme disease and it's chronic, it's something that I had for a while, wasn't diagnosed. I went on so many different medications and so many build outs. It was 4 years of antibiotics, and it wasn't the standard.
Yeah.
And I did not get over it until I took it upon myself and did protocols that were experimental. And I found a doctor that was willing to give me as many antibiotics as I wanted and to try what I wanted. And so I literally did what is not in the books, that is not in research. I won't say it because but I literally took 20 times the amount of antibiotics in a very low period of time and literally annihilated my body for 3 or 4 times. And that is, I believe, 100% that got rid of it. And so it's the trying. It's the never giving up and giving out, and it's like, be curious about it. I'm like, here are some people that have recovered and they're talking about it. And I'm like, I'm trying it because nothing else is working. And so, and having that belief, that you're doing what you can and believing in what you're doing.
Yeah. And I think it gets tricky with medical stuff when it isn't as proven. But I think what you learn, I mean, obviously it's like the things that were like, quote unquote, proven, they weren't working for you. And then I also, like that's kind of how evidence advances anyway, is like people try things and then sometimes it works for some people and then they do a study on it and then they prove that it works for more people, or, like that's kind of how knowledge advances. So it can feel tricky, and I don't want to suggest that like evidence-based medicine isn't a good thing, but but you do have that like intuition sometimes that does tell you like, this is not the right way to go. That's a really interesting experience that you had.
I think so you take that and you put it in your entire life. Like I'm always someone to try, like you just try, like even with social media or new avenues you want to coach or try things, like just try them. Like the worst case that can happen is, okay, that didn't work out. Or I didn't really like that. So let's change and change things. Like it's the not trying and thinking you have to have everything perfect. And I say the same thing with the perfect race or the perfect build out or whatever. Like it's just try like where you are. And sometimes I have athletes that I coach that feel like they're not ready or whatever. And it's like, but no matter where you are or what you are, you have what you have right now. So let's see what you've got. Like, let's just try. Let's just see it. Like, okay. So if like, they feel this way, but if they don't try, they won't know. And it's the acceptance of willing to give it a shot. I'm willing to see what happens, and the outcome could be good in terms of what you want, quotational, or it could be something else, and that experience is what we're all here for, is that's more exciting to me. And seeing, I like some of the best races I've ever had. I just went out there, not like just being grateful that I could get out there and see what I had versus expectations. And I think when people get injured, they have these expectations, that they will get better. Like, okay, I have a bone stress injury. Everyone says it'll heal in about 6 to 12 weeks. Well, I'm going to heal in 6 weeks because, we always go to the lower end.
The lowest end.
But in reality, it's 6 to 12 weeks. And more often than not, it takes the 12 weeks, and sometimes it takes 16 weeks. Like those are just ranges. And so the expectation you're going to heal at 6 weeks, may or may not happen. And so you have to see that as a shift, knowing that you don't have any guarantee when you're going to be okay to go do something. So you just take one day, you take 1 week, you take 1 month, and you progress. And sometimes you don't have any healing done. Like that's what happened with my hip. I waited 6 weeks and it got worse. But I followed protocol. I stayed off it. I was very careful, but it wasn't healed. So what I was doing, that path I was doing wasn't working. So I had to change it. And it was either lie in bed and probably not heal properly for over a year or get surgery. So I opted for surgery.
Yeah. Yeah. Which, is kind of like when you laid out sort of the choice that you made with your tendon, where it's like, okay, the surgery was actually more, the healing process would have been longer, more intense, when in this case, surgery like helped you heal more quickly and with more certainty. Exactly. So it's like, you always have to like take all those factors into consideration too. And like, it seems like that's what a lot of what you've learned too, is just like how to put those pieces together. And like, it may feel like gut, but it's also like your informed knowledge over years of having done this. And
and I mean, I come from a little bit of a different background. Like I come from a physical therapy background and sciences. And so I can read art, like I can read literature, I can do research, I can see stuff. But I think what happens with a lot of people that may or may not come from that background is they reach out with their fingers. Like, I'm going to ask this person because she's a PT. I'm going to ask that person. I'm going to get that advice. I'm going to get that from my friend. So now they have 20 different avenues of where they're getting advice from, and they're overwhelmed and completely like, I don't know what to do. I get that. I understand that. But this is where you need to close that window of asking questions, because more is not better at that point. Pick it down to 3 people. And 3 people that you can fully go with, not 5, not 7, because that's not right. Like, I'll just tell my friend about this and see what her opinion is, but then go to a different friend or a different person. You have to narrow it down and find three people, and you have to accept that if you don't have the outside knowledge and you could think you could gather it, it doesn't work that way. You have to understand where this knowledge is coming from and putting it in a perspective of what's going to help you the most. And again, reaching out, there's so many cooks in the kitchen, just doesn't make a good soup.
No, that's a good point. And especially because some people are reaching out to like get the answers that they want to hear too, versus like it's actually going to be beneficial. So
yes, that's actually a really good point. Is I mean, it's a very psychological thing we all do, is we research for what we want to find out, and have happen. So it's definitely finding people time and time again that can put emotions on the side for you and help you navigate a little bit more than just finding more information.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. Well, I feel like you've answered this question in many ways throughout this, but, if you had to like kind of describe it globally, like how would you say that all of these experiences with injuries and other obstacles have changed you as an athlete and a person?
I think it's opened me up to actually living life, because you can only, as cliche as it sounds, you can only feel the ups with the downs, or feel on top of the world when you're right at the bottom. But I kind of live that way, and I wouldn't want it anyway else, because when you do get the highs, they really become something that you can feel as a high. When you get the lows, you really feel it. And I just feel it makes me as a more rounded person experiencing life. It's not only channeled me into, I feel, being a better coach for people and understanding what people are going for, but also different avenues in my life, and seeing how, attachments and victimhood and all that really can dictate how you are as a person, and just opening up those avenues of perspective. They've given me so many different perspectives, and that's what I feel is living more so than not. I'm reading, that's why I love to travel, to be honest, is being in different societies and cultures and understanding and being part of that and learning, because it's a different perspective on life. It's a different way of living and seeing life in a different way. And so I'm actually really grateful for all of the injuries I've had, because I've learned so much between it all. Could I have learned stuff without them? Quite possibly, but it is what it is. It happened, and it couldn't have happened anyway else. So to not be grateful makes no sense. So, it's my life. I'm going to be grateful for whatever happens in it, because it's my life. So it's just it's a perspective shift,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it feels like you are kind of taking that approach to the idea of like aging as an athlete too. I know you had a great post about this last year about being 43 and like,
Yeah.
transitioning.
Almost 44.
No, yeah. Carrie and I have been talking a lot about this too as masters athletes ourselves, although not to the same level, but that is another situation where that creativity and that curiosity and that sort of, as Carrie puts it, kind of the idea of like fighting for your future and like what you want to happen in the future versus like always looking back is really beneficial too. So, yeah, if, to wrap it up, I'd love to hear like kind of your mindset on that right now and also like what your goals are for the next year and soon into the future.
Yeah. So I think as an athlete, you go through these phases. When you're 20, you're like, I'm going to be on top of the world. I don't really care what happens. I'm going to do whatever it takes to get there. Mm-hmm. And then as you age, you get injured or something happens or you have kids, different things happen in your life. Mm-hmm. Perspectives change. You learn more. So now that I'm in my 40s, I don't have kids, but I've learned a lot in terms of other avenues. It's really about longevity. There comes a point in your life where you realize like, exercise is beneficial for health and it keeps you healthy, active, and living longer. We all know this. Mm-hmm. And it's not a matter of how much you push yourself, but how much you can maximize who you are right now in a healthy way that you can continue to do it year after year after year. Mm-hmm. When you're in your 20s, you don't think about this stuff, but when you're in your 40s, you want to keep doing this. You want to do this until you're 90, until you're basically, done. Mm-hmm. Or at least I do. Like I want to be healthy and active. And so there's this shift of maximizing what I can do, but being able to recover from that in a sense of always leaving something on the table. And that's what I like to tell my athletes. You don't leave a workout completely annihilated. You always have something you can do or feel like you could have done one more hour or one more interval or what have you. Mm-hmm. If you have that mental thought process every time you work out, that is creating longevity in the sport and having fun with it. And so part of what I want to do now is not only share that with the world, because I really do live it. And I think living what I preach or living what I do with other athletes is one of the most number one things you can do is to help support someone is like really believe in what you're doing. And so the knowledge that I've experienced in the last 2 years and working and educating myself, I love coaching. And so I've been coaching a number of different people. I've created a whole new avenue of style of coaching that I'm doing now. And also being in the sport as long as I can in the sense of I still have my professional card. Will I win an Ironman? I don't know. Would it be cool? 100%. But I have the ability to race in that category. So why not try? Even if I become dead last, it's never a perspective of I'm doing the best I can, like whether that be in any category I'm in. But I've been a professional triathlete for so long. Why would I want to give that up? I'm not attached to being in the front end. Like I'm not attached to results. I'm attached to what I give out of myself, that whether that be first place, last place, middle place, or DNF because of something happened. I tried. And that's how I want a lot of people to see is giving yourself a shot is better than expecting what's maybe not going to happen. So instilling that and really just trying. And part of that is doing different things. So I got into gravel riding because it was really challenging, doing some mountain biking, doing some stage races. I just love the Ironman. I love the whole idea of it. It's a hard challenge. I mean, it's definitely a lot of training, but you can also, but I think that fallacy of that it's for certain people is wrong too. Everybody can do it. It's just a matter of what you're able to sustain and maximize. So knowing how can you get through that versus you have to do a certain number of hours because you can't attach yourself to that. And it's the same thing for any build up for a race. So overall, doing what I can, keep challenging myself, be curious, try, and help support others do the same and feel just as excited if they finish last to first place, to be honest.
I love that. Well, Angela, thank you so much for sharing all of this. It's been really lovely talking with you, and we'll definitely link to your coaching website and all of that too, because I think you really do have like a unique philosophy and a like with your focus kind of on testing and repeating that and really understanding your training in that way, you're really helping people like nurture that creativity and curiosity for themselves and tap into like what they can do, So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate all of it. And we look forward to keeping tabs on all of the exciting things you have coming down the line.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Thanks again to Angela for joining us and to our sponsor, Lever Movement, for making the show possible. Don't forget to use code INJURED20 for 20% off at levermovement.com. We're also grateful to Jeremy Nessel for editing this and every single episode of the show. And we appreciate you, our listeners and club members. You can listen to the Injured Athletes Club podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Amazon Music, or just about anywhere else you get your podcasts. And we have new episodes every Thursday. We would love it if you would subscribe so you don't miss any of them. And if you like the show, we'd also really appreciate a rating and a review. That helps other injured athletes find us. Finally, between episodes, you can join our Facebook group, which is also called the Injured Athletes Club. You might run into Amy Woods, who I mentioned in the intro there, and so many other wonderfully knowledgeable and supportive athletes, coaches, people who understand what you're going through because they've been there too. It's another way to find that kind of community that people like Angela and Amy have built. You can get links to that group and everything else we've mentioned on our website, injuredathletesclub.com. We'll see you there.